In this lecture, we'll write our first C# script in Unity, so let's get right to work in Unity. Here's the start screen for Unity, and you won't have a bunch of recent projects in yours, at least until you've done Unity for a while. So we're going to create a new 2D project, so click the New button over here on the right. Be sure to click the 2D radio button right there, and I'll call this First Unity Script, and then you click Create Project and wait patiently while it does that. So here's our starting project for a 2D project. Out of the box, Unity does not look this way. The windows and the views are in different places, but in the Setting Up Your Development Environment chapter from the book that I gave you, I explained to you how you can move things around to look like this instead. You don't have to. This is just the way you'll see Unity in all the videos that I do. So I am going to come over here to the project window and I'm going to right click and I'm going to create a new folder. And this folder is for the scenes in my game. Now you can think of scenes as levels if you'd like. And in many of our Unity games, we'll only have one scene, but organizing into a scenes folder makes a lot more sense the more scenes you end up with your game. So we might as well form that good habit now. So I'm going to Control S and I will double click scenes and I'm going to save the current scene. I'm naming it scene 0. You can name it gameplay or anything else you want to do. Now I'm going to add another folder. This one will be called scripts, and this one will hold all the scripts that I want to include in my Unity project. And I will now right click that folder and say create C# script. And I will make that script named print message. Okay, so at this point, I've already built 2 folders and each of them has something in it. Go do an in-video quiz to tell me about folders. Okay, before I open the script, I want to show you how you can change which IDE you're using to write your C# code. So up here on the top menu bar, if you click Edit, Preferences, and you select External Tools, here, the very first one on the right is External Script Editor, and so I have it set to use MonoDevelop, but you can just change it to use Visual Studio instead if you choose to do so. I'm not going to. I'm going to use MonoDevelop throughout this course, but that's where you change it in Unity. So when I double click this script here, it will open up my selected IDE. And in this particular case, of course, that's MonoDevelop. So this looks different from the main class that MonoDevelop gave us for a console app, because here we are in Unity instead. If you adjusted the template that gets provided when we create a new script in Unity, as described in chapter 2 of the book that I gave you, then it should look like this. I'm going to add a class comment here that just says prints a message. And now you'll see I get 2 methods by default. I get a start method and I get an update method. Now the start method is called, strictly speaking, when the script is activated, but really let's just say it gets called when the game object that this script is attached to gets added to the scene. That's not precisely true for more complicated Unity games, but it works fine for the things we're going to write in this course. So we can just say when the game object gets added to the scene. And we'll talk about game objects and scripts and how we attach them later on in this lecture. So given that description, you should go do an in-video quiz about the start method. And this other method we get by default, update, is called once per frame. And that's pretty straightforward as a description of when it gets called. It gets called every frame. So if you're running at 2 frames a second on a very slow computer, the update method gets called twice per second. If you're running screamingly fast at 60 frames per second, then update gets called 60 times a second. So every frame of the game, update gets called. Now we're just going to print a message in the script. So I'm going to delete the update method because we don't need to print our message every frame. We only need to print it once. So I highlighted update and I deleted it. Here in the start method is where we will print a supportive message. Now within a Unity script, we don't use console.writeLine. Instead, we use print. And the argument we provide to print is a single string, and we'll say, "Hi, noob," like we've been saying all along. I'll save. You can, in fact, compile to make sure it builds fine, and we have a build successful here. We don't actually run scripts from within MonoDevelop. We're going to need to go back to Unity to see the behavior of this script. So here, back in Unity, what we expect to see is our output over here in the bottom left in the console window. So we click the Run button to run a Unity game, and once it all turns blue up here, it means our Unity game is running, and we're very sad because nothing is showing up in the console window. So as I mentioned briefly when we're over in MonoDevelop, we need to attach a script to a game object in the scene to make that script run. And we have one game object in the scene right now. It's the main camera. You'll always by default have a main camera in your scene. So we need to attach this script to the main camera. And the easiest way to do that is to just drag it from here onto main camera and then let go of the left mouse button, Control S to save. And now when we run our game, we see over here in the console window that it actually printed out "Hi noob" for us. And so we can stop our game and we have successfully completed our first C# script in Unity. To recap, we can either use MonoDevelop or Visual Studio as our IDE for writing C# scripts in Unity. We just have to set our preferences appropriately. As a reminder, we need to attach a script to a game object in the scene to get that script to run. And while that feels obvious, you'll probably forget a few times early on and later in your Unity development work, because that's sort of a common thing. You write your script and you're ready to go, and then you forget to attach it somewhere. So just remember, that's the first thing to check before you start trying to debug, is to make sure your script actually is attached to a game object in the scene.